name is Richard Wade, and I'd want to say thank you so much for sparing a bit of time to watch this video on our YouTube channel. So MedicZone is quite new, and it's been put together for the very specific reason of capturing memories of medics and people who work in or who have worked in a medical capacity at some stage in their life. Today's guest happens to have been ex-military, and I'm going to introduce my guest to you in a moment. But MedicZone is not just about military. As you'll see as we go forward, we've got various guests lined up, all of which we're extremely grateful to, ranging from doctors and nurses, people working in remote medicine in some really austere and horrible parts of the world. I can't wait to speak to those people when they come on. But that's what we're all about. It's people getting an opportunity to tell others who normally wouldn't hear their story, what they did, where they've been, what their experience in the medical world has been over the years. And that's what today is going to be all about. So before we bring on our guest, who is a long-time military man, and we'll get further details of that, I have one request to you. Spare me a moment and look down, and you'll see a subscribe button. So you have the opportunity here of subscribing to the MedicZone YouTube channel, and I would urge you please to do so. And if you like what you see today and you like some of the other videos that are on the channel already, then please hit the bell and you'll get alerted every time that we're about to go live. So we're going to have some varied and interesting guests along the way, storytelling, people letting us know what they did throughout their life in a medical capacity. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And I'm really, really looking forward to today. And let me explain the reason why. So you can see on the screen there, we're about to be joined in the next couple of seconds by Andy Brayshaw. Andy currently lives in Australia, and Andy has effectively dedicated the best part of his working life to serving other people in a medical capacity. And his chosen venue of choice was the army and the military services, and in particular, the medical services. So Andy served in the British Army and the Australian Army. And I'm not talking for some short period of time. He did over 40 years in green. So we'll bring Andy in and we'll go and listen to Andy's stories. So let's, without further ado, click a button. And on my screen will appear, all the way from Australia, Andy Brayshaw. Andy, here.
Hi there, how's things going? Yep.
How are we doing over there? You're in Australia. Let's set the scene. Where are you, mate, at the moment exactly? And what time is it, more importantly?
Yeah, I'm sort of about 30 kilometres outside Sydney, and it's just gone 9 o'clock here in the evening.
Wow, okie dokie. Well, it's very good of you to join us, I must say. I've been looking forward to this, Andy, and there's a number of reasons. One, because you've got a great, fascinating story. More importantly, we're kind of from a similar cloth. We've been cut from similar cloth, both ex-British military, Royal Army Medical Corps, and you went on and did similar things in the Australian Army. And I mustn't forget at the end to find out, so what are you doing now, and how has all that medical stuff in the military transferred into civilian life? We'll come on to that shortly. But what I'd like to do is I just want to go back to just before you joined the army. Tell us a little bit about little Andy when he's like 15, coming on to 16, and he's about to leave school. And where were you then? How did you do at school? And what made you go, aha, I'm going to join the army?
Well, like most kids back in them days, I used to play soldiers when I was a kid at school with my mates. We were playing soldiers all the time. And being a soldier was something I always wanted to do. And I remember when I was at my last year in high school, I said that I was going to join the army. And there was sixers in our school year that went to join the military at the same time. And of the sixers that joined, all my teachers and all my friends were saying, "Oh, Andy Brayshaw, you're not going to last 5 minutes in the military. You know, you'll be out. You won't be able to hack it. It'll be too hard." And after 3 years, I was still the only one serving. Everybody else had left. I was still going through it. Although I must admit, when I first joined up, there were times when I wanted to leave. I must admit, there were times. as I'm sure anybody who served in the military when they first joined up, and started going the basic training. Oh, I don't want this. This is not the life for me. I want out of here. And I had those feelings at the start as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I know exactly what he's saying. It's not all fun and games. And in that first period as well, it's like, it's that shock factor of, oh my God, what have I done? What's happening?
Exactly.
However, you must have done something right, because 43 years later, you were still doing it. So we'll come into that in a minute. So when you joined, then through the High Street Recruitment Office, Army Careers Office, was that the normal transition?
Yeah, so I went through the Army Recruiting Office in Barnsley, which was my local town. So I went through there and got through all the normal bits that you do there, the interviews and everything. And then they sent me through to Sheffield, to the Careers Office in Sheffield, where I did some more interviews and some more medicals and everything. And I remember when I went for my medical, they said, we're going to have to, you've got bad eyesight, so we're going to have to send you to see a specialist. So I went to see the specialist, and he did my eyes, and he came out. He said, look, I'm sorry, young man. He says, unfortunately, your eyes aren't good enough for the Navy. I said, I don't want to join the Navy. I want to join the Army. He said, you've got no problems with the Army.
They'll have you, as long as you've got one good eye, you're in.
That's it, yeah.
I love it. And then, then did you decide at that point, Royal Army Medical Corps, or was that?
It was. Yeah, well, when I was a kid, I always used to play doctors all the time because I liked medical stuff. So I was playing doctors, but I knew I didn't have the brain set to be a doctor. Yeah. So I was looking for what was the next best thing. And when I was looking into joining the military, I heard about the medical corps. I was looking at what jobs they had in the medical corps. And I saw, medical assistant. Oh, that sounds good. As it was medical assistant back then when I first joined up, before it became the combat med techs. I thought, that sounds good. I think I could do that. So, of course, that's what I went for. So when I did all my aptitude testing and everything, all my marks were making sure I could get through the aptitude test to go in for the medical corps.
Good on you. And that was obviously successful. And then on the fateful day, I have a vision in my mind of Andy Brayshaw getting off the train, having travelled down from Barnsley with a suitcase of some description, probably to Ashvale Station.
Ashvale Station. There was a load of other kids my age, 16-year-olds, all at the train station. All these kids with long hair and everything. They didn't have long hair for long.
It was so funny. I recall it well. Again, I reckon that was day one of that initial bewilderment. Oh, here we go. This is getting met at the station. And then did they march you and walk you up the back gateway as well?
If you remember rightly, we were lucky. They actually drove us round the front way in a coach.
What? Luxury.
Drove us round.
There we go. So for those who maybe aren't in the know, so what Andy and I are referring to now is a place where at this time, so this is the late 70s, isn't it? Just before
late 70s,
back end of the 70s. Keogh Barracks, which was the home of the Royal Army Medical Corps, effectively, and throughout mine and Andy's career, that kind of remained. So certain changes now, but that's for a different episode. So Keogh Barracks, an older shot where all the medical corps at that time training was undertaken. So were you an apprentice soldier?
Yeah, I was 16.
What house did they put you in?
Harden House.
Okay, well, considering you've turned out all right, so maybe in an extra vast man, and then just in a nutshell, in a couple of minutes, how did you find the apprentice course? Because it's a couple of years of your life, isn't it, as a young kid? Young boy.
I was there for about 18 months, I think it was in total, and for the first, I must admit, for the first few months, I literally hated it. I was sort of one of the, I'd say one of the weakest members of the team. I wasn't very fit, hated running, hated doing anything physical fitness. I was always getting shouted at and everything, as I do, shouting at you, the fact, getting told off, my bed's not tidy enough, I'm not fast enough on the runs, and getting all this. And I must have at least half a dozen times I must have requested from my house sergeant that I wanted to speak to the OC. I want to leave. And every time I went down to the OC's office, he talked me out of it.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
So I just stuck it out, basically.
Yeah, it's fascinating times, and worth expanding on very briefly because again, this channel is not just for military people. So that it's a good mixture, isn't it, of military training. So learning to be a soldier, in a way, learning to be an adult, I guess, as well, and work as a team and mix with people. And then, of course, that's the start of your medical training as well. When you left, so you said you did about 18 months here. Were you a med assistant 3 or 2? What kind of?
Yes. So when we left the apprentice college, we passed out into the regular army, and we were medical assistants class 3. So we completed his class 3 training while we were still in the apprentice college. Yeah. So we were newbie medics when we joined our first units.
And what was your first unit?
My first unit was 6 Field Force Field Ambulance, which later became 16 Field Ambulance.
Wow. So you're kind of going to get a baptism here, aren't you? Because they drag you out of Barnsley, drive you. That's worth noticing. That's luxury. Drive you out to Keogh. 18 months training. By the end of that, now you're fit. Now you're smart. Now you've got a level of medical training as well. So you're kind of the rounded individual. That factory turns out a brilliant place. I have very good memories of it myself. But what's interesting to me is where you then went. So you then go down what becomes 16 Field Ambulance, because now we're in the early 80s, aren't we? And so correct me if I'm wrong, in 82, so you're now still part of that unit, and you're off on a journey to the South Atlantic as part of the task force for the Falkland Islands. I'm assuming you were thrown straight into that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I mean, I've been with 16. I joined 16 Field, or 6 Field Force as it was at the start, in January 79. So I had a good few years at 16 before the Falklands came up. So I'd done a few things. I was already... I was a Lance Corporal when I went down to the Falklands. So I got my first stripe up. So, but I always classed the Falklands as my 21st birthday present, because the Argentinians invaded on the 2nd of April, and my 21st birthday was the 4th of April.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Where are you going for your birthday? Oh, I'm going on the boat trip.
Well, I can actually remember. I can still remember to this day where I was on the day that the Falklands was invaded, and we were in Scotland at Aviemore skiing with the unit.
Oh, right. And okay.
I remember we were sort of stood outside the tents around the 4-ton vehicles, having breakfast, egg banjos and that, looking up at the ski slopes, trying to see what we're going to do next during the day, when over the radio comes this: Argentina invades the Falkland Islands. And we all looking at each other to say, how the hell did Argentina get to Scotland without us knowing about it? We'd never heard of the Falkland Islands before. We thought it was somewhere in Scotland.
Yeah, me and all. I know exactly what you mean. It's like, oh, what's going on, and where is it? So let's explore that a little bit, if we can. A couple of minutes on the Falklands, because it's a long way down, obviously. So what ship did you get on?
I wasn't lucky, mate. I went down on a 1,000 Torsen car ferry. The Baltic ferry, one of the ferries that was built for going across the English Channel, not for going down to the South Atlantic. So there's the Baltic and the Nordic, and I was on the Baltic ferry.
Was it still manned by its normal crew, its civilian crew?
Oh yeah. So it still had the civilian crew, most of the civilian crew on it, and it wasn't really a ship that was built to go in the rough seas of the South Atlantic, because it got quite rough as we sort of sailed down there, and it was a bit slower than the normal ships. I mean, we left before the QE2 did, and the QE2 beat us down there.
Chugging. That will learn you to get the bus to Keogh. That's payback. That is.
Retribution.
So how long did that take? So you're now headed towards you're on a car ferry. Down you go. Take us through that journey in a nutshell. Tell us what were you doing on board, because you've now got a long journey ahead of you, but a big unknown. When you get there, I'm really intrigued as to how was that journey, and what did you do to fill the time?
Yeah, it was a long journey. I mean, there was a lot of soldiers crammed onto this ship. I mean, in the cabin I was in, I think there was 7 of us sleeping in a cabin that was built for 2 people, really. Wow. So we were really crammed in. And we used to take it in turns to sleep on the floor. So you used to rotate around the beds to decide who was sleeping on the bed and who was sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
We did a lot of training on the way down, weapon training, weapon handling. Our first aid training and medic training sort of stuff, and checking and rechecking of the kit and everything to make sure we had everything, we knew how it did. We did do a bit of work on the vehicles and stuff, and working on the vehicles inside the hull of the ship. We've actually the walls of the ship are actually open to the sea. So you had water gushing in as you were trying to do stuff on the ship. You're climbing over camouflage nets and everything to try and do the stuff that was all jam-packed in there. So it's quite a long journey down there.
Yeah, like challenging as well. Very challenging. And I guess because you've got to keep busy. But I'm guessing the opportunity there though was to hone those skills, whether it be fitness, medical, weapons. That time must have been really, really well used. By the time you get wherever you're going, probably the best you're not going to be any better prepared for this kind of thing. So what happened? At what point did you get off that ferry? What happened when you got to wherever you ended up?
Well, we ended up arriving down at San Carlos Water down in the Falklands, and it was would have been towards the back end of May when we actually arrived in the Falklands. I think it was early June we landed at San Carlos. When we first had a look at what was out in facing us, and we're looking at the landscape of the Falkland Islands, we did our pre-deployment training in Sennybridge in Wales before we actually deployed down there.
Yeah,
and it was just like looking at the hills in Sennybridge. We just sailed down the coast to the other side of Wales, because that's what it looked like. And then, of course, that's, then we started unloading the ship, unloading all the gear and everything at San Carlos. And we spent a few days at San Carlos just getting things sorted. Because Goose Green had only just taken place. So, the Battle of Goose Green had just not so long since taken place. And we were getting ready for the next push forward. And I remember the first time when I realized, oh shit, I'm at war here, was it was my turn to go on stag in the trench. And I got in this trench. I was next to a Royal Marine corporal, and we're manning the GPMG submachine gun. I'm thinking, I'm a frigging medic, and I'm here in a trench with a GPMG, and you see the hills, and your mind's playing tricks with you. You say, is that somebody moving around on top of that hill? Are they coming to attack us? We didn't know how far the Argentinians were away from us, because the menial soldiers, we didn't get all the facts of where all the positions were and everything. We just told, this is where you're going, this is where this is what you're doing next. And then round about the 7th of June, we got notice that we were going to move round to Fitzroy to get ready for the final push up towards Stanley. And due to a few little minor hiccups with some of the boat ships and that, we ended up sailing round 16th Field, the medical section, ended up sailing up round with on the Sir Galahad with the Welsh Guards.
Right.
So we sailed around the island from San Carlos Water around to Falkland Sound and Bluff Cove, and we'd been anchored off in Bluff Cove for God knows how many hours. We got there sort of early morning and we're still there mid-afternoon. When I'd just finished writing a letter home to my mum. Remember the old blueies that we used to write?
Oh God, yeah.
I'd just finished writing one home to my mum. So I thought, well, I'll go to the toilet, and then when I've been to the toilet, I'll go and post this letter to my mum. Now the post box was up in the canteen. As I got to the toilet, I put my hand on the toilet door and I said, oh, no, sod it. I'll go post my letter first. Then I'll go back to the toilet and I can enjoy a good, half hour on the toilet.
Yeah.
And as I turned round from the toilet, the first bomb from the Argentinian Air Force hit the ship. And I remember the force of the blast blew me up the stairs. And I could feel the heat from around my, behind me. And then everything just went black. And then you heard all these explosions, and you could start smelling all this burning stuff.
Yeah.
And it seemed like ages. Must have only been a few minutes, but it seemed like ages before I got out of the corridor where I was, because I felt behind me and there was no stairs behind me. The stairs had gone; they'd just been blown away. Yeah. So I'm going. So you're feeling around in the dark, trying to find out, get out, and I managed to get up on the deck. As I stood on the deck, I looked out to the water and I saw what I thought was a periscope. Okay. And I thought, we've been torpedoed. It wasn't a periscope. What it was a downdraft from a helicopter. But it was making rings but the downdraft was making rings in the water. And of course, where your mind plays tricks with you.
Yeah.
Because everything's running through your mind and everything. I thought, there's a periscope there. We've just been torpedoed. Wow. And then that's when we found out that, we'd actually been bombed. And when I got on deck, there was still explosions. You could still see the ship exploding all around us. And one of the biggest mysteries I've got is, and if there's anybody who watches this can tell me, I'd be really pleased, is I can remember treating casualties on the ship when we got hit. I can remember treating casualties on shore. I just can't remember getting off the ship. It's just a blank.
Right.
And even after all this time, I still don't know how I got off the Galahad.
So that's still a blank in the mind. Yeah.
So I just don't know how I got off the Galahad. Some memories have come back about things that happened on the Galahad. Some things that are not too nice to talk about. But actually, how I got off the ship, I still don't remember how I actually got off the ship. And then I remember treating casualties at Fitzroy after the Galahad had been hit.
Yeah.
So we dealt with all the casualties that came off, and there was horrendous casualties suffering from mainly burns and stuff like that. Absolutely horrendous.
The worst thing you could possibly have, to deal with, and particularly having been involved in it, the causal factor at the time. Yeah. That's horrendous. Now, of course, that's a key part of the Falklands War. It's interesting you mentioned the helicopters. Is that where they were using them to move the boats and get the
that's right. Yeah, they were using the downdraft of the helicopters to move the life rafts away from the ship, so they didn't get caught up in the flames and the explosions.
Yeah, I do recall that being a poignant moment. Obviously, I wasn't there; I wasn't part of this operation, but I do recall seeing that. And what you've just said, I thought, that's exactly what I'd kind of seen, but purely on the TV. So let's not let this moment pass. Thank you I really appreciate you talking about that. It can't be easy to mention that kind of stuff. That's a horrible experience to have to go through. But both you and I, both ex-medical corps, 3 members of our corps didn't come home from the Falklands. And I want to mention here, because I know from our previous conversations, and I also know from our dealings on LinkedIn and social media, that you happen to have back home where you are in Australia now. You've got a shrine, haven't you? You've got a memorial to those guys. Do you want to just quickly mention the names if you can, Andy?
So we call them the guys from 16th Field. We call them the boys, and it was Major Roger Nutbeam, the Unit 2IC, Lance Corporal Ian Scouse Farrell, and Private Kenny Preston. They were the 3 that didn't come home. Roger Nutbeam, the 2IC, his was the only body, if you could call it a body, that we actually got off the ship. He was the only one, because I was on his burial. I was part of his burial detail when we buried him at Ajax Bay in the military cemetery at Ajax Bay. But that was so. I used to do something every 8th of June every year. I'll go into the city, lay flowers at the cenotaph and things like that, just to remember the boys. And
good.
A few years ago, when we moved into the house we're living in now, I decided to build a small memorial garden. and I finished it, and then I haven't finished it because I'm going to do some more work to it this year. And then so I did post some pictures on LinkedIn of it when I'd finished it the first time round, but I'm going to sort of update it a little bit over the next few months. So once that's done, I'll be posting the updated version of the Memorial Garden.
Well done. Well, that's a commendable thing to do, mate. Seriously, we can't, regardless of the circumstances, people can't be forgotten, and that's a wonderful thing to do. So hats off to you for doing that, and rest in peace, Preston Fowler not being there, the boys as you refer to them. So let's move on from the Falklands then. So we're now in the early 80s. You're back from the Falklands. Where do you go next? Where's the next sort of jolly posting for Andy Brayshaw after that? Where do you end up?
I ended up then in the middle of nowhere, just outside Newcastle. And a lot of the medics will know his place, MRS Euston, which at the time was Junior Regiment Royal Signals. Yeah. And Euston is an old World War II Air Force base, slap bang in the middle of nowhere, just off Hadrian's Wall.
Luxury.
Yeah, so I got posted there for 3 years to the medical centre. 3 years.
Yeah. Oh,
so that was a bit of a
let's say about that, because I know exactly where I'm in Newcastle myself now, so not there. 16 field, 6 field 4, 16 field, little stint in the Toon with the Geordies, but then we're off to Germany now, aren't we? Are we going to go?
Posted to Osnabrück to Armoured Field Ambulance.
Yeah,
that was my first posting to an Armoured Field Ambulance.
So we're mid 80s now. So
this would have been about 85, 86, I think it was.
Yeah, 85, 86. Good time to be in Germany. Days of, and I can say this because when I mentioned at the start, similar type. I was in Germany at this time. I was in Dusseldorf as it happened at HQ British Forces Rear Combat Zone, BFPA 34. Days of Deutschmarks, days of tax-free cars, cheap tobacco, cheap cigars. Wonderful times. And did you have a good time in Osnabrück?
Oh yeah, I mean we loved it. I mean, I always remember my wife Anita. My wife didn't like it when we first got there because the first day in the unit got active edged.
Oh right, okay.
Remember the active edge exercises for the Russians coming over the border?
Yeah, I do.
So
let's hang on before you go on. Let's mention something because again this is not just for military people. So let's tell us what is active edge and what does it mean?
So basically, active edge was the code name that they gave us for a readiness exercise to practice. The balloon going up and the Russians coming over the border. So basically, and so all the units would get rolled out and they'd all go out onto the training areas, and you could be out there for a few days or a few weeks depending on what the hierarchy wanted to do. So that's what active edge was, and it used to happen on a regular basis. It could happen 3 or 4 times a year. You'd get active edged. And it got to the stage where you weren't supposed to know it was happening, but everybody knew it was going to happen before it happened. We got so used to it. You could always tell.
It was the worst kept secret.
Yeah.
So out we go. So we're mid 80s. We're at Osnabrück at 2 Armoured Field Ambulance. I think are you promoted to sergeant at this point around about this time? I got promoted to corporal when I left Euston to go to 2 Armoured. Yeah. And while I was at 2 Armoured, I got promoted to sergeant. So I think I was only a corporal for about 18 months. Nice one. Good enough. Yeah. So quick move through the ranks there. And then what I want to do is I want to fast forward a couple of very brief things. So we're in Osnabrück. Next posting, in a nutshell, where do we go from there?
BMH Hong Kong.
This is so life's starting to, you're getting the rewards now, aren't you? So the Toon, the Falklands, Bulford, Hong Kong. Hello, here I come, Andy. Andy's arrived. And as a senior NCO, were you there? Are you married? Yeah, you said you were married.
Yeah, I was married. Yeah, we had one daughter, and our second daughter was born in Hong Kong.
Oh, excellent. So now you've got a growing family as well. So
Yeah.
I've never been to Hong Kong. I'm assuming it's a flipping nice place to be posted.
It was a nice place, yeah. Back then it was. It's not a nice place now, but back then it was.
Yeah. And on the medical side, Andy, you're now a senior NCO. Are we working in a hospital, in a medical center? What's work like?
I was working at the British Military Hospital in Hong Kong,
yeah.
and I was the senior NCO IC reception.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent stuff. And did you get a full tour there? Did you manage to get a good few years in there?
Yeah, we were there for 2 years. We were 2-year posting, so we got 2 years there. Good thing about Hong Kong is because you're in Hong Kong, you get a free holiday. So they pay for your free holiday. So we went to Bangkok, Pattaya, and Singapore on behalf of the military. And we had a few issues with our holiday, so I put in a bit of a complaint to the tour operator, and they gave me some money back. So in theory, I got paid for going on holiday.
That's all right. Oh, well, a tough gig, but someone had to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
10 out of 10. That's ingenious, is that, to get paid on top of your military pay for your holiday. I like it. That's stylish. So a good time in Hong Kong. If I'm hearing you right, that sounds like a good, fun place to be. And then after that, back to the UK for a short stint.
But then Dutchess of Kent Military Hospital.
But then back to Germany again after that one, yeah?
Yeah. Well, we went to DKMH in 90, and I went to the first Gulf War with DKMH as part of 2-2 Field Hospital Group.
Yep.
And then just after coming back from the Gulf, I got posted back to Germany to 4 Armoured Field Ambulance.
Right, excellent. So let's hone in on the Gulf for a couple of seconds. We'll do, again, just like the Falklands, we'll have a quick snapshot. So again, one of the similarities, I did the Gulf War myself, early 90s. I was with 1 Armoured Field Ambulance, part of 7 Brigade. Where did you end? Where were you? What was your main role during the Gulf War?
So I was at 2-2 Field Hospital Group, which was the 2-2 Field Hospital, and I was in the reception of the hospital, of the military hospital. So we were sort of getting in the casualties as they come, and then sorting them out to say who was going to go to major treatment, who was going to go to minor treatment, and all sort of stuff.
Right, quite important role there then. And was that a bit, from the medical side, was that busy? Was you have a constant set of people coming through then?
When it was busy, it was busy, and when it was quiet, it was quiet. There was no happy medium. We could go days where we didn't get anything, and then once they started doing the push into Iraq, we got quite a lot of work coming through. And we'd get the coalition forces wounded. We'd get Iraqi wounded coming through as well. I always remember one Iraqi soldier. The doctor was cleaning his wound out. He had a large flap of skin on his leg, and the doctor was scrubbing it clean with a scrubbing brush. And this poor old Iraqi soldier must have thought he was being tortured, because there's this doctor scrubbing away on his on his skin, right? And this young Iraqi soldier screaming his head off. I thought, this guy must think he's being tortured here.
Bless him. He's being helped. Oh, well. Yeah, he's a mistake.
A funny story about the Gulf War is, and this will resonate with you and anybody that's served, is remember when we did our NBC training, they say you've got 9 seconds to get your respirator on. I always remember when we had our first warning, an air raid warning, that the Iraqis might be using chemical weapons. You could hear everybody counting, 5, 6, 7, and then they get to 11, 12 going, oh, fuck, I'm dead. Oh, fuck, I'm dead. Because the respirator. So people would walk around with the respirator on their arms ready to go.
Panic stations. Yeah. No, you're right there. So we had all them years, didn't we, of like gas, masking 9 and all that. You think, oh, God, yeah. But it's interesting that when it's in an unknown, like I know exactly what you're talking about, when suddenly you've got to put it on and you don't know if it's for real, then that training comes in handy. And you want it on, and it's got a tin of compo beans in it, or your fags or something like this. Absolute nightmare. But okay, so that's the Gulf early 90s then. when that finished, where did you zip off back to after that, and where did you go back to from the Gulf?
I went to Minden to 4 Armoured Field Ambulance.
Yeah.
I spent a few years with 4 AFA. While I was there, I did a little bit of work with the Americans. I did their expert field medical badge, which the percentage pass rate among the Americans is about between 7 and 14% of them pass this expert field medical badge. There was 5 Brits on the one that I did, and all 5 of us passed straight away.
Oh, brilliant! That's
so,
good.
You know, I've met quite a few American soldiers in the past in my career, as well as in Australia. And the minute they find out that I've got the EFMB, they think I'm one of the best guys going, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the unit I did it with actually invited me back the following year to actually, as a trainer, to train them on night navigation, because I was a map reading instructor, and their navigation skills were crap. So I love it. Says, you teach our guys to read a map at night time.
That's funny. I like that. Medics teaching people how to read maps. That's brilliant. Well, I tell you what. Let's fast forward a little bit. So I know from there, you know, there's other postings, including with the Navy. Or was it down in Gosport? Did you have a stint at Gosport?
Yeah, that was my last posting.
Hazlitt. And was that so we're now coming into what? We're around about 2001, 2002. Yeah. 2001. And so what, at this point, are you deciding did you decide I'm going to leave the army, or did you think, I wouldn't mind going and joining the Australian Army? How did that come around?
Well, it came about while I was at the Infantry Training Centre at Catterick, when I was working at the Med Centre there. I put in, like most of us do when we warrant officers, we say, I'll put my paperwork in for commission.
Yeah.
And I put my paperwork in, and everybody was supporting it. The Commander Med and everybody was supporting it. But the Commandant of the ITC, the Infantry Training Centre, who was a para, he was saying, no, you'll never make an officer in the parachute regiment. And I'm going, I don't want to be an officer in the parachute regiment.
I don't want one.
So I refused to sign off on it. So I thought, bugger this for a day game of soldiers. And then when I got promoted to RSM, originally I was posted to 225 Highland Field Ambulance in Scotland as the RSM there before I went to thing. And it was while I was there I applied to join the Australian Army, because I'd heard that they were recruiting British soldiers to join the Australian Army because they had a shortage, and it's what they call the lateral transfer system. Yeah. So I applied to join. And I got accepted while I was at 225, but I turned it down because they wanted me to start in January 2001, and I was due to complete my 22-year service in April 2001. So if I'd have come out early, I wouldn't have got that lump sum at the end of it.
Yeah, of course,
the full pension, the lump sum that you get at the end of it. So I wrote to them. I said, look, now I'm not willing to do that. I'll say I'll reapply in 6 months. And they said, you might not get a job in 6 months' time. And I reapplied, and they snapped my hand off again because they were still wanting people to come over there. And it took about 18 months for me to get to the Australian Army, because back then everything was done by email, by snail mail. Emails, so you had to post it backwards and forwards all the time. Yeah. So it took about 18 months. So I'd been out of the Army just over a year before I actually moved to Australia.
Wow. Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. So, so now they've offered you straight into the Royal Australian Army Medical Corps.
Yep.
Did you get to keep your rank?
No, I had to go down one rank.
That's all right. That's cool.
I left as an RSM, went over there as a WO2.
But the fascinating thing for me, I didn't know that bit, which is why I wanted to ask that. But I do know, though, that not only by this stage, you've had quite a long and, dare I say, interesting and illustrious career in the British Army, encompassing all of the major conflicts that occurred during your tenure. But now and that's a big, long career. Well, now you're going to go and start another one in the bloody Australian Army and do it all again. But but it obviously went really, really well, didn't it? So how many years in total British Army?
I did 24 years in the British Army.
Wow. And how many years in the Australian Army?
I did 19 years in the Australian Army.
2 full careers in 2 different militaries. That's actually quite fascinating. And on the Australian side, then I know you did really well because you became a major, didn't you? You commissioned. You were a major. Give us just a quick snapshot, if you like, of service in Australian medics as opposed to British. Is it the same? Is it what's it like?
Well, some things are similar. I mean, anybody that decides to come over here, you got to understand they're a lot more laid back than we were in the British Army, for starters. Me being ex-RSM, it took me a little while to get used to that. I always remember when I went to the unit, because I got posted to a reserve health unit as their WO med, and it was reserved. So Tuesday night parade night, I says to the sergeant, I says, I'll take them for drill tonight. So I had them all out on parade for drill, started backing out orders for them to take them on drill, and they're all just stood there going, what did he say? What did he say? They couldn't understand the word I was saying, because there's me, broad Yorkshire accent, screaming out commands, and they just didn't have a clue.
What the thing you've landed from a different planet.
Yeah, but it was a really good move. I mean, I got heavily involved in they were going through a process of just bringing out a new medical trade for the Army Reserve medics, a combat medical attendant trade. And I got heavily involved in that. And as a result of doing that, in 2006, I received the CF Marks Award, which is the Soldier's annual prize for the Royal Australian Army Medical Corps. I was awarded that for my contributions towards, all the stuff I'd done for the unit since I moved over, and all the work I'd done on the new trade for the reserve medics.
Good skills, there, man. That's fascinating. And nice to get recognised for that as well. For obviously all the hard work that had gone into that. So let's look at where we are now. We're on 42 minutes, so we're coming to the sort of last couple of minutes of our thing. When you then decide that's the end of my Australian military career now, then, and you retire from the Australian Army, that's not the end of your life as a medic, is it, or medical work? Because take us on to what you do now, Andy, and give us a quick resume about your ABC life-saving stuff.
Yeah, so when I didn't actually retire, I got medically discharged.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'd still be serving now if I didn't get medically discharged. But I've always been heavily involved in teaching first aid. So I started working for some registered training organisations, delivering first aid training for them, and I've now started up my own first aid training company. Which I've been sort of working on it little bits at a time, and hopefully by the end of this year that I'm going to be fully working on my own business rather than working for other people.
Brilliant.
And I've also got back into doing medical work as well now. So I've joined a company that does medical work. So I now going back in actually doing some hands-on medical work as well, providing medical support.
Wow, fascinating. There's no stopping you, is there? You'll still be doing this when you're 90. Who's that old guy?
I'll die with, it's like I tell people, I'll die with my boots on.
That's right. Who's the guy shaking in the corner? That's not an old guy. That's your medic for the day. That's Andy, that is. No. Thing is, though, fascinating trade to be in. And you know, it not only is it great for the medic, it's the beneficiaries of all that skill and knowledge and experience. You keep it going as long as you can, mate. And the fact that you're now teaching others, and I've seen on your LinkedIn, and I love watching it where medics are teaching kids. I know you've done quite a lot of pediatric training and all that. I love that, because that's where you got to get them young. It's a life skill, isn't it? It's life changing. So Yeah, so I think that brings us round now 44 to the kind of a full circle. Maybe you'll have the last word, Andy, but let me do a quick wash up if I may, please. And there's a few things that come across to me. I've sort of followed what you do on LinkedIn, social media, and I've always kept a keen interest and close eye on what you do, because you've had such a fascinating career, and I hope it doesn't get missed on people what a career as a medic actually means. It means a lot of trauma, it means a lot of hardship, and it means a lot of basically doing lots of hard stuff that other people benefit from, and sometimes we as the medics suffer from. And with that in mind, I say brilliant service. That's good. What you've given is outstanding and fascinating service through your military career and what you now do. And two countries have benefited from that, UK and Australia, and you continue to do so. So that's a brilliant thing. But more importantly, from my perspective, being an ex-military guy myself, is the way that you don't forget stuff. So you went down to the Falklands. There were some horrific circumstances that you've explained to us nice and candidly here, and I appreciate you going into that. You lost your mates, you lost people who were your buddies and your drinking pals, and people you're close with and you live, eat, and breathe with. But you don't let that get forgotten. You've got your memorial, and you keep that alive, and that is truly, truly commendable. So thank you. Not from me as a guy who didn't even know those guys. I think that's admirable. So thank you. Brilliant service. Fascinating talk here. I've really enjoyed this. It's been good fun. It's been a good crack, and it's moved along really, really quickly. So final words to you, Andy. Is there anything you want to say? Anything I might have missed? Anything of specific relevance or important that you want people to know before we click the button and we disappear onto the YouTube ether forever?
Well, one of the things I'll say to any medic that's thinking of coming to the end of their 22 years and wants to keep going, is apply to come over here as a lateral transfer, because they're still asking for lateral transfers. In fact, I'm in the process of giving some advice to a young combat medical technician who's in the process of coming over here now. She's due out soon, and she's going to be coming over here. So I've been sort of giving her some advice and stuff and what to expect and all that sort of stuff. So if anybody ever thinks, oh, I like to have a go at that, just drop me a line, and I'm quite happy to tell them exactly what the score is, and tell them the true facts about what's actually involved and everything.
Well, that's a really good thing to put in, because and what we'll do is we'll make sure when we launch this onto YouTube, we'll make sure your LinkedIn contact is on there. So so I think that will actually be of interest to a lot of people. There'll be a lot of people who don't even know they can do it, and you've done it yourself. I won't name them because I haven't got any permission to name other people, but I know of 4 other people of our era, and you'll know probably what I'm talking about anyway, who have left the UK, joined the Royal Australian Army Medical Corps, and did really, really well, like yourself. You went right through to the ranks to major. There's another opportunity there, another career path people can take.
It,
So,
totally.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Right, Andy, here we go. Look, time's up, matey. Thank you so much, and I've appreciated it. It's been a really, really lovely chat. Really enjoyed it. Seriously, thank you for your time. Don't disappear just yet. I'm going to stop the recording though. Everyone that's still watching, thank you. Thanks for joining myself and Andy Brayshaw, all the way from Australia, where we've discussed Andy's career in both the British military, in the Royal Army Medical Corps, and the Australian military in the Royal Australian Medical Corps, Army Medical Corps. And it's been a fascinating watch. If you're still watching, get down and subscribe, and come and join us on future ones. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.